to, our favorite subject, which we, really now have to start moving away from. And that was 9AV and all of this business about the World Trade Center. What I think we have to do now is we have to start to look at this as an event that occurred, which is the World Trade Center attack, and then start to say, well, with this tremendous change that has impacted the Earth, how does it coordinate with the celestial bodies, planets and so forth that we've been studying, such as Zeta? And then God, what is this? Because we hear so many people saying, well, God bless this, and God wouldn't do this, and then the attacker's praying to this thing. Well, did this God allow this to happen? Did this God ordain this to happen? Well, we get into thinking things like this when we consider that this God is a man in the sky. A man in the sky who, actually involves him or herself or whatever it is into the types of things that we feel are important. I'm going to show you something very, very interesting about this in a little bit about God bless and so forth. But anyhow, we have to start now moving in a pathway of getting God, what we call God, involved in the consideration of all of this, the movement of planets and the alignment of planets and different heavenly bodies that we've been discussing, plus the event, the attack at the World Trade Center, and 9AV, which is the Jewish time of destruction. In fact, I sent another letter yesterday, being frustrated that the FBI did not seem to jump up and down over this discovery. I sent a letter to the CIA. I said, your friends don't seem to be, and I'll show you why I did. I can't help these things. I sit there and I see things, news articles, and then I say, what the heck is this? And so I start writing a letter off, and I'm telling these people at CIA, you people are stupid. You're not thinking like that. I'm sure there's some guy in the other one. Oh, here's another one. But anyhow, the 9AV we have discussed and discussed and discussed because of the implications for your safety. Not only for now, but for next year. The implication of two numbers, 9 and 11. Now, we've gone over and over and over the fact that in Judaism, in the spiritual Judaism, they operate on a lunar calendar, and it's 9/5, really, and not 9/11. But on the solar calendar that we use and the world uses now, 9AV is 9/11, 9/11. And so then my concern and concern for your safety was built around the fact that religious fundamentalists, who were the people who attacked the World Trade Center, were deeply aware that in Judaism, this Tisha B'Av, or 9AV, is a time of destruction and commemorates serious destructive times that Jewish people and the Jewish cult, if you would, has suffered during the time. And we've gone over this. The lunar calendar, it's 5, but in the solar calendar, it's 11. And right now, it's an interesting time because, you have all of this FBI and everybody's warning and so forth and so on. And the 11th month is upon us. Authorities warning us of imminent danger. So, when you get into mythology, mythological ways of writing, metaphysical ways of writing, symbolistic types of things, it takes all kinds of turns and changes. 11/9 would be a day that would concern me, November the 9th. November the 18th would be a day that would concern me because of the 1 and 8 equal 9, and so you'd have those two. November 27th would be a day because here, once again, you have 9. So you have any combinations of 9/11, 11/9, and so forth and so on, simply because of the fact that the people that are doing the destruction are deeply involved in this religious stuff. And they know about all of this. And what a way they could start moving in a coded fashion with all this and fulfill, because they think they're doing this for God. So then wouldn't it seem reasonable if they feel, well, if God is destroying all this Jewish stuff on 9/11, then let's do it on 9/11 or 11/9 or whatever. So is anything going to happen? In the back of my mind, I kind of think no. But you should be careful. And I wouldn't breathe a sigh of relief when November's gone away, because there'll be a September in 2002 and another September 11th and possibly something in September on 11th Street. Or 9th Street in November. Something on 9th Street. I mean, they just had the big post office was in New York was hit with the Amtrak thing, was on 9th Street. 9th Avenue. 9AV, right? Who knows? So you see where I'm coming from. And the government is making a very big mistake because they're not thinking in the symbolic world. They're not thinking in the world of religious spirituality, metaphysics, mythology. They don't understand that. They don't think that way. And yet the people that are on the attack are thinking that way. And last week we discussed the attack against the Jews that happened in England and is part of the annual mourning. And real quick, I'll just show this to you because it's just interesting. We just review it for a second. But there's Clifford's Tower. There was a massacre at York in 1190. The Tower, York's medieval castle, the most horrifying event in the history of English Jewry. March 16, 1190, the small Jewish community of York gathered together for protection inside of the tower, and they all got killed and were massacred and murdered. So you had an anti-Jewish massacre at the Tower of York in 1190. And here, last month, you had an anti-Jewish mentality attacking a tower, the Twin Towers, and causing a massacre in New York and 9/11. It's curious. It's very curious. So is it a coincidence? Is it an anti-Jewish attack, a massacre in York in a tower? And then what we saw here, is that a coincidence? Or is it this? Look at overhead B153. Could it possibly be this? And that is the book of Ecclesiastes 1:9. The thing that has been is that which shall be. So we're repeating that which is done is that which shall be done. There is no new thing under the sun. Is there anything you say, this is new? It's already been of old time. And so is that possibly, it almost seems as if each generation plays out some form of the same drama, like we're actors on a stage. You can take that back. And if there is no new thing, how important then for us to consider the things that have been? Nobody would ever pick that up and say, hey, there was an attack in York at a tower in 1190. You say, well, nobody would ever. Why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't the CIA or the FBI or all these groups have people that are skilled in understanding things that happened? Because the entire religious war that you're involved in right now is a conflict between Islam and Israel, the Jews and the Muslims. It's always been it. We're in the middle of it because we've taken sides. But I mean, why wouldn't somebody be skilled as an advisor to these investigative bodies to show them, hey, look at this. This is interesting. Oh, yeah, look, we had a tower in York. Now, we have twin towers in New York. That was already attacked once. Remember? What was it, a couple of years ago? So now here, 1190, I wonder if that means it could be 9/11. They don't think that way. But if they did, they might have known and might have been on guard about something like this because they had other information that this was going to happen. Well, if you took that other information, put it together with the fact that there was an attack on a tower in York in 11/9, and then it could have come out, So I just sent an email to the CIA because you get frustrated. You're telling people. You know what the frustrating part of it is? You'd say, well, maybe they don't think there's much to that. But at least it's something. They have nothing. Absolutely no clue about any of this stuff, and they're the first to admit it. Let me show you something. I want to show you an overhead of a news release that came out yesterday. And that's what caused me to pick up the phone and call the, not pick up the phone and call the CIA, but that's what caused me to send them an email. Let's take a look at Overhead 502. All right? Overhead 502. The U.S. tries to guess the next terror target. All right? Now, if we look here in paragraph 3, okay, terrorists seek out vulnerable spots. That's the only thing most experts agree on. Okay? That's it. All they know is they call them terrorists, which is wrong because they're religious fundamentalists, and they seek out vulnerable spots. That's the only thing they agree on. They don't agree that there's any planning going into this that has any spiritual or traditional significance. They don't talk about that. See, I continue to insist it's a grave mistake to call them terrorists because they're religious fundamentalists. And when you understand that they are religious fundamentalists, you begin to think in the terms that they do. And if you begin to think in the terms that they do, that would bring you to 9AV. That would bring you to the Tower in New York. And then you could start looking at ancient texts and traditional things that have happened for clues and codes. Because right now, FBI and so forth, they have no idea where to look. Look at paragraph 4, and this is very interesting. The big failure we had on September 11th was the failure of imagination, of imagining what they could do, said Herbert Meyer, chairman of the CIA Intelligence Council. We can't afford that again. And there it is. This guy's with the CIA, a very true statement. They have no imagination into the realm of symbol and ancient text. They don't even conceive these things, and so they're left over. They had no idea. No way to follow the clues. If the people that were doing this at the World Trade Center were involved in the anthrax thing, you can bet that somewhere behind that is some kind of religious basis. And, you know, somebody should look, at least somebody should look at it. At least it's something to think about. Because right now these people have nothing to think about, you know. So anyhow, when I'm looking at this, I'm looking at combinations. You know, if 9AV, 9th Avenue, 9AV, is 9/11 or 11/9, I'm looking at combinations of 9/11, 11/9, various components that make up the two. We look for prominent buildings on 9th Avenue or on 11th Avenue. Do you know what I'm saying to you? Because you got something then, and it's in the realm of what these people are. But now look at this. This is about the CIA and the FBI. And I want to show you something interesting. The FBI has issued 2 nationwide alerts that terrorists might strike. Look what the first one was. October when? 11th. And the second one was October 29. Add 9 and 2 together. What's it come out to? 11. A similar FBI warning, based on information, led Hollywood studios to close September 20th. Add 9 and 2 together. What do you get? 11. I mean, it's the same thing. September is the 9th month, isn't it? 2 and 9 is 11. Everything. And so somebody, you know, once again, I just put 3, and they could be coincidences. But when you get all of this stuff and there's so many coincidences, then you start saying, hey, you know, maybe somebody is. And so I wrote all of this stuff to the CIA. I said, read your own stuff, and I'm telling you already. Oh. But at least these people have absolutely nothing to work with, and you're giving them some kind of a basis. At least they could set a little, you know, room next to the water cooler and put somebody in there who might read this stuff. Now, you can take it down. We have something to consider here. The FBI, the CIA, the president, and everyone else admits they have nothing. But what do we have? We have, 1, we have anti-Jewish feeling. That's obvious. 2, we have destruction. 3, we have a time of mourning and sadness. 4, we have a symbol of great wealth, World Trade Center. 5, we have 9AV, which the World Trade Center was located on Greenwich Street, which is 9AV in Upper Manhattan. And 9 AV is also 9/11, and the World Trade Center was destroyed on 9/11. Now, I want to look at something here with something called the handwriting of God for just a minute. On overhead 488, in paragraph 2, Rabbi Nachmanides, encoded within the first part of the Torah, was a specific description of the lunar cycle. Now that's the lunar cycle is the one that puts AV as 5. Nachmanides claimed the Torah was written like a cylinder, pointed to the amazing repetitive nature of the date 9 AV as an example. He pulled that out and said, look, you know, there's an amazing repetitive nature of 9 AV. This date has enormous relevance to the Jewish world. So many horrifying tragedies took place along the corridors of time on that specific date. Well, in honesty, they didn't. Basically, that's a little bit misleading because all of these things didn't happen on 9 AV. 9 AV is a time that the Jewish religion takes to commemorate terrible things that happened, whenever they did happen. So we would consider the World Trade Center to be a horrifying tragedy of the extreme sort, and it was destroyed by those who are highly anti-Jewish and anti-Torah. Now, let me just show you, because when we're considering 9 AV and the symbolic connection to 9th AV, I want to show you something, because we do place into this mix the fact that Greenwich Street goes into the World Trade Center, and before it becomes Greenwich Street, it's 9th Avenue. Let's look this word up, avenue, as in the dictionary, and you see the word avenue, AV, abbreviated either AVE or AV, and connected to the word arrival, and this one here is extremely important, Advent. This is a religious thing here. So it transcends itself from the Jewish religion into our religion, because I don't know if as a kid or whatever, when you were in the traditional church, Advent. Let me interrupt myself for just a minute, and I'm very pleased. Would you take it? Very pleased that I saw. You know, I've gotten a little flack here about saying we shouldn't be saying and shouldn't be singing "God Bless America." There is a traditional church in this town, Forked River, and on the highway. And they have a sign outside, and I celebrate every time I drive past it. I say, my God, they've got it. And the sign says, America, bless God. There it was. Right on the button. Basically what it's saying, don't be asking for yourself. You give of your heart, your spirit, someplace else. And that was a beautiful thing to say. So, if we look at overhead 490, we see here, once again, AV. And this is from the American Heritage Dictionary. Now, you see, the 11th month of the year in the Jewish calendar. Well, you know, so many of the Jewish calendars take, oh, it's the 5th. But you have to understand that in the Jewish, even in the Jewish calendar, there's a solar calendar and a lunar. Lunar is 5, solar is 11. But talking outside of church, outside of temple, outside of synagogue, into the real world of the news and the stock market and what goes on every day, it's the solar calendar, and it's 9/11. So it's the 11th. And it was on 9/11 that this took place. So, okay, you can take that out. So now we have here either a coincidence or something that was known and planned, which I say this was, by the people taking part in this who were religious fundamentalists and knew of this 9 AV, or it's divine intervention. If it is divine intervention, then everyone should stop what they're doing and consider that this entity called God is extremely ticked off with us. Because it would mean that this whole thing was set up by God. Now, we saw a moment ago that AV has a connection with the word Advent. When we look at Advent, it is defined as the second coming. Let's look at overhead 491. Here, overhead 491, the word Advent. And you can see it is the second coming. In addition to that, it connects to the word arrival. Arrival, which would be consistent and square with the Messiah, whether it be the Jesus as the Messiah or the Jewish Messiah, whoever's Messiah you want to talk about. Now, when we look at this metaphysically, I know there are people in religious circles who are looking for Jesus to come flying down through the sky. Okay, but that's basically is not what that means, because it says in the Bible that that's not what it means. The kingdom does not come with observation. What it's talking about is a new mind, a new consciousness, a new way of thinking, a change of the accepted order. Okay? Now, if that is true, then indeed the destruction of the World Trade Center may be deeply connected to Advent, because it may and probably and surely will bring upon everyone in the world a new way of thinking, a new mind, a new thought process. Nothing ever